The crystalline throne hall of the Zalari Empire was unlike anything a human could see on Earth. Sunlight streamed through towering walls made of blue crystal, scattering light into 1,000 shimmering colors. Above, enormous banners of silver and white hung from the vaulted ceiling, swaying gently in the air that smelled faintly of flowers. The floor was polished so perfectly that it mirrored the alien grandeur above. Standing near the grand entrance, Lieutenant Aaron Hale kept his back straight and his eyes sharp. He was one of only 3 humans allowed inside the royal palace of the Zalari, and the only human to hold the position of royal guard to Queen Ilyara herself. Even after 2 years in her service, he never forgot that every alien gaze on him was, judging, weighing, and perhaps doubting his worth. The queen stood at the center of the throne hall, speaking to her council. She was tall, taller than any human woman, and her silver skin glistened faintly as if dusted with starlight. Her long white hair flowed down her back, and her eyes, the pale blue of ice, swept over her audience with quiet authority. Aaron listened without understanding every word. The speech was in the Zalari language, sharp and melodic, but he had learned enough to follow the general meaning. She was discussing trade routes, border disputes, and a new alliance that, from the murmurs of the nobles, not everyone approved of. His gaze scanned the room again. The council stood in a half-circle around her, dressed in their jeweled robes. Alien guards, twice the size of Aaron, stood like statues along the walls. Servants moved quietly along the edges of the hall, carrying data scrolls and refreshments. Everything seemed ordinary until it wasn't. Queen Ilyara's voice faltered mid-sentence. Her fingers gripped the edge of the podium, and Aaron saw her eyes widen, not in anger but in sudden, sharp pain. A ripple went through the crowd. Her silver skin lost its luster, fading to a pale gray. And then she collapsed. Gasps and shouts filled the hall. Nobles rushed forward, their voices rising in a mixture of alarm and confusion. Alien guards moved quickly, but Aaron was already moving faster. His boots echoed against the crystal floor as he pushed through the stunned crowd. Clear. "The space!" he barked, his voice carrying more authority than his rank technically allowed. Some Zalari hesitated. Humans were not known for giving orders here, but something in Aaron's tone made them obey. He knelt beside the queen, checking her pulse. Her breathing was shallow, her forehead damp with cold sweat. The royal physicians arrived, tall figures in pale green robes carrying sleek medical devices. One knelt beside Aaron and scanned her with a small crystal-like tool that emitted a faint hum. "She is overworked," the physician announced quickly, his tone too smooth, too practiced. "Stress and exhaustion." Aaron frowned. He had seen exhaustion before. This wasn't it. Her pulse was irregular, her skin cool, and there was a faint shimmer along the veins in her neck, like light trapped beneath her skin. "What caused this?" Aaron demanded. The physician gave him a look, a polite mask hiding irritation. "We will handle it, human." Aaron's jaw tightened. He wanted to push further, but this was not the time to challenge the palace medics in front of the entire council. Still, his instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. The queen's advisor, Lord Selvar, stepped forward. Tall and thin, with narrow eyes and a smile that never reached them, he addressed the crowd. "The audience is dismissed. The queen will recover shortly. Return to your duties." The nobles obeyed reluctantly, their whispers following them out. Aaron stood, watching as the physicians lifted the queen carefully and carried her toward the inner chambers. He moved to follow, but Selvar stepped into his path. "That will be all, Lieutenant," Selvar said softly. "Your post is here." Aaron's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "My post is protecting the queen." "And she is well protected," Selvar replied. "Go no further." Aaron held his gaze for a long moment, then stepped back, outwardly compliant, inwardly furious. When the hall finally emptied, Aaron remained at his position near the door, but his mind wasn't on guarding the empty space. He was replaying the scene in his head. He had noticed details that no one else seemed to care about. The Queen's collapse came suddenly, without the gradual signs of fatigue. The shimmer on her skin wasn't natural. It was concentrated in certain areas, almost like a reaction. She flinched earlier when someone mentioned the Eridan sector, a distant region of space. The more he thought about it, the less convinced he became by the physician's explanation. Stress? No. This felt targeted. Later that evening, Aaron stood in the outer courtyard, watching the alien sky darken to deep violet. Twin moons rose slowly, casting pale light over the palace gardens. Zalari servants passed by, speaking in hushed tones, their glances sharp and curious when they looked at him. He caught two young attendants whispering near the fountain. Their words were in the Zalari language, but Aaron understood enough to catch fragments. Sealed wing. Dangerous. Shadow accord. When they noticed him looking, they quickly bowed and left. Aaron leaned against a crystal pillar, thinking. The sealed wing was an old section of the palace he had never been allowed to enter. It was heavily guarded and locked with security codes only the highest council members possessed. And the shadow accord. That was a phrase he'd never heard before, but the way they spoke it made it sound like something forbidden. The rest of the night, Aaron remained alert, but the unease didn't leave him. He had been a soldier long enough to trust his instincts. This wasn't a random fainting spell. It was the result of something deliberate, something hidden. And if the Queen's own council wasn't going to investigate, then he would, because no matter what the alien hierarchy thought of him, Aaron Hale was more than just a guard standing at a door. He was a soldier who knew that. When a leader fell, it was never an accident. And this time, the leader was his queen. The morning after Queen Ilyara's collapse, the palace felt different. It was quieter than usual, not in a peaceful way, but in the tense silence of people hiding something. Servants moved quickly, avoiding eye contact. Guards spoke less. Even the sound of footsteps on the crystal floors seemed softer, as if the palace itself didn't want to draw attention. Lieutenant Aaron Hale walked down the main corridor toward the royal quarters. He had not been allowed to see the Queen since last night, but that wasn't going to stop him from trying. His boots clicked against the polished surface, echoing between the tall crystal pillars. At the doors to the Queen's private chambers, two Zalari guards blocked his way. They were massive, easily a head taller than him, with pale blue armor that shimmered like liquid metal. One of them crossed his spear in front of the doorway. "State your purpose, human," the guard said in the Zalari language. "I want to check on the Queen," Aaron answered in the same language, careful with his words. "I serve as her personal guard." "The Queen is resting." "No visitors," the guard replied flatly. Aaron held his ground. "Even her guard?" The guard's pale eyes didn't blink. "Especially her guard." Aaron didn't like the way that sounded, but pushing past them would only cause trouble. So he nodded slowly, turned, and walked away, outwardly calm, inwardly burning with suspicion. Instead of returning to his assigned post, Aaron made his way to the service wing of the palace. This part of the building was less grand, with narrower corridors and fewer guards. Here, servants and maintenance crews came and went, carrying trays of food or crates of supplies. Aaron had learned something during his time here. The servants knew more than anyone else in the palace. They moved everywhere, they heard everything. And they talked, if you knew how to listen. He spotted an older servant named Maria polishing a crystal archway. She was short for a Zalari, with soft gray hair and kind eyes. Aaron had once helped her carry a heavy crate when other guards ignored her, and she hadn't forgotten. "Maria," Aaron said quietly, switching to her language. "I heard something last night, about a sealed wing." "What is it?" Her hands froze for a moment, the cloth still pressed to the crystal. She glanced around to make sure no one else was close. "You should not ask about that, human. I'm asking because I think the Queen's life is in danger," Aaron said. His tone was calm but firm. "If you know something that can help me protect her, I need to hear it." Maria hesitated, biting her lip. "The sealed wing. It is an old part of the palace. No one goes there now. It was closed after the Shadow Accord was signed." "What's the Shadow Accord?" She shook her head quickly. "It is forbidden to speak of it. Even I do not know all the details, but I know this. When the Queen was younger, she used to visit that wing for ceremonial purposes. Then one day, she stopped. The guards were doubled and the doors were locked forever." Aaron frowned. "And no one has gone inside since?" "Only certain council members," she whispered. "And Lord Selvar." The name hit Aaron like a spark. Selvar, the Queen's advisor, was the same man who had blocked him last night, the same man who had insisted the Queen was overworked without a proper medical explanation. Aaron thanked Maria and left before anyone noticed their conversation. If Selvar had access to the sealed wing, and if the Queen had collapsed after something connected to it, then it was a lead he had to follow. The sealed wing was on the far eastern side of the palace, away from the grand halls and audience chambers. Aaron walked there slowly, making it look like he was on routine patrol. He passed 2 guards in the outer corridor. They barely glanced at him. At the entrance, he found the great crystal doors Maria had described. They were twice his height, carved with intricate patterns of stars and spirals. The lock was a circular panel with shifting symbols. Zalari security code. He didn't have clearance for it. Aaron stepped back, scanning the area. A small maintenance alcove stood nearby, filled with tools and repair drones. He slipped inside and found a set of scanning goggles. With them, he studied the panel's surface, watching the shifting patterns until he recognized a repetition in the sequence. It wasn't perfect. He wasn't a Zalari security officer, but his years in the fall. Military had taught him how to spot patterns. He memorized the sequence, waited until the hallway was empty, then entered the symbols as quickly as he could. The lock clicked. The heavy doors slid open with a low hum. Inside, the air was cooler, heavier somehow, and carried a faint metallic scent. The walls were lined with alien runes that pulsed softly in the dim light. The corridor beyond was quiet. Too quiet. Aaron moved carefully, his footsteps muffled on the smooth floor. He passed rooms with sealed glass doors, each containing strange equipment, tall crystalline pylons, shelves of metal tablets, and cases filled with glowing stones. As he reached the central chamber, he stopped dead. In the middle of the room stood a large crystalline structure shaped like a spire. It emitted a faint rhythmic pulse of light, almost like a heartbeat. Aaron's portable scanner beeped in warning, its screen displaying fluctuating energy levels. He adjusted the settings, checking the readings. The frequency coming from the spire was unlike anything in human databases, but one thing was clear. It was harmful to Zalari physiology. Not just any Zalari, though. The readings matched something he'd seen in the Queen's medical profile during his guard training. This thing was tuned to her. Aaron's stomach tightened. This wasn't some old ceremonial artifact. It was a weapon. One that had been slowly poisoning the Queen whenever she came near it. Footsteps echoed behind him. Aaron turned, hand instinctively going to the small sidearm at his hip. Lord Selvar stood in the doorway, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. "Curious place to find a human guard," Selvar said smoothly. "Curious? Thing to keep hidden in your Queen's palace?" Aaron replied. Selvar's smile was thin. "You have no idea what you are meddling with, Lieutenant. That device is older than your species' recorded history." "And it's killing her," Aaron shot back. So why keep it here? Selvar stepped closer, his voice lowering. Because it serves a purpose you cannot understand. The Queen is too eager to embrace your kind. Some of us know that such openness is dangerous. Empires do not survive by trusting outsiders. Aaron felt the anger rise in him. You think killing her will save your empire? It will only destroy it. Selvar's gaze was cold. Not if no one can prove what happened. Before Aaron could. Move! Selvar tapped a control on his wrist. The doors behind him slid shut with a sharp hiss. You will leave this wing, human, and you will speak of nothing you have seen. Consider this, a command from the council. Aaron's mind raced. He couldn't overpower Selvar here without raising alarms, and he had no proof yet, just a dangerous artifact and a powerful enemy. But one thing was certain. He couldn't walk away. Because if he did, the Queen would not live long enough to see another sunrise. The rest of the day dragged like a heavy chain. Lieutenant Aaron Hale kept to his guard post, eyes forward, hands still, but his mind was not on the corridor in front of him. It was back in that cold chamber of the sealed wing, on the strange, pulsing spire that beat like a poisonous heart. He couldn't stop thinking about the way it was tuned. The readings had been clear. It was set to harm only one being in the entire palace, Queen Ilyara, and the one man with full access to that wing, Lord Selvar, had caught him there, threatened him, and told him to forget what he had seen. Aaron had been a soldier long enough to know that people who said, "Forget what you saw," were usually the ones who needed to be exposed. That night, the palace grew quiet. The twin moons cast pale light through the crystal windows, turning the halls into rivers of silver. Alien guards patrolled at intervals, their heavy steps echoing through the stillness. Aaron waited until the changing of the watch. It was the one moment when the guards moved in groups toward their stations, leaving gaps in coverage. He slipped from his post, moving quickly but silently down the east corridor. The sealed wing's grand doors stood like sleeping giants. This time, he didn't bother with the obvious lock. Instead, he went to the side maintenance panel he had noticed earlier, a small, almost hidden hatch used by palace engineers. He had borrowed a multi-tool from the repair bay earlier in the day. It took him 4 minutes to bypass the panel's security nodes. The mechanism clicked softly, and the doors opened just enough for him to slip inside. The air hit him the same way as before, cool, heavy, with a metallic edge. The runes along the walls pulsed faintly, as if aware of his presence. Aaron moved quickly, scanning the side chambers as he went. One room contained tall crystal cylinders filled with a shimmering liquid. Another held racks of strange armor that looked ceremonial but radiated faint energy signatures. Then he reached the central chamber again. The spire stood where it had before, its pulse slow and deliberate, the light shifting from deep blue to faint violet. Aaron approached carefully, holding his scanner out. The readings were stronger tonight. That could mean two things. Either the device was becoming more active, or the Queen's condition had worsened and was making her more sensitive to it. He circled the spire, looking for control panels or access points. Finally, he found a narrow seam in its base. Kneeling, he slid his fingers along it until a section of crystal lifted to reveal a small console of alien design. The display flickered with symbols in the Zalari language. Aaron's training had given him only basic knowledge of their writing, but he recognized enough to piece together the meaning. Target, royal genetic signature, Ilyara. His stomach clenched. This was deliberate beyond any doubt. The device had been keyed to her DNA. It wasn't a leftover relic. It was an assassination tool hidden in plain sight. A soft sound made him freeze. It wasn't a guard's footsteps. It was lighter, hesitant. He turned sharply to see someone standing in the doorway. It was Maria, the older servant who had spoken to him earlier. Her eyes were wide, and her hands twisted together nervously. "You should not be here," she whispered. "I could say the—" "Same to you," Aaron replied quietly. "I came because—" She looked around, then stepped inside. "The Queen is worse tonight. The physicians are lying to the court saying she only needs rest. But I saw her myself. Her breathing is shallow, her skin dim. I think she is dying." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then this," he gestured to the spire, "is why." Marea's gaze fell on the console. "I have seen symbols like those before, long ago, during the last days of the Shadow Accord." "What was the Accord, Maria?" "No one will tell me." She hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. "It was a pact made with an ancient enemy. The Zalari agreed to keep certain weapons inside the palace, locked and untouched. In return, the enemy withdrew from our borders, but the Queen, she always hated that agreement. She believed those weapons should be destroyed. Some of the council disagreed. They believe such weapons are useful." Aaron understood immediately. "And Selvar is one of them." Maria nodded. "He believes humans are dangerous to the Empire. He thinks you will change the Queen's mind about old traditions. If she dies, the next ruler will not trust your kind." The sound of heavy boots echoed in the corridor outside. Maria's eyes widened. "Guards are coming!" Aaron quickly closed the console and motioned for her to follow him. They slipped into a side chamber filled with dusty ceremonial banners. Just as the main doors slid open, through a narrow gap in the wall, Aaron saw Selvar enter with 2 armed guards. He walked straight to the spire, checking the console. "Activate the final phase," Selvar ordered coldly. The guard hesitated. "But my lord, if it reaches maximum output—" "Do it!" Selvar cut in sharply. "She will not see the dawn." Aaron felt a cold fury build in his chest. He had no weapon powerful enough to destroy the spire here without drawing attention, but now he knew the timeline. Selvar planned for the Queen to be dead by morning. As the guards finished their work, Selvar turned and left with them, the door sealing behind him. Aaron stepped out from the shadows. Maria looked pale. "We must stop it." "We will," Aaron said, his voice firm. "But I can't do it alone. I'll need proof, something I can show the council before Selvar tries to silence me." Maria's eyes darted to the spire. "Then, we record this. The console shows the Queen's genetic signature. If you can capture that and the activation order, no one can deny it." Aaron nodded. He pulled a small human data recorder from his belt, a military-grade device meant for field missions. Connecting it to the console wasn't simple. Zalari technology was notoriously incompatible. But he had learned a few tricks during joint training exercises. For 10 tense minutes, the recorder captured the display, the Queen's name, the targeting parameters, and the energy output cycle. When it finished, Aaron secured it inside his armor. They slipped back through the palace halls, moving like shadows. Twice, they had to duck into side corridors as guards passed. By the time Aaron returned to his assigned post, the changing of the watch was almost over. No one had noticed his absence. Yet. Maria vanished into the servants' wing without another word. Hours passed. Aaron stood guard, his face calm, but inside his mind was already planning. At dawn, he would go to the council chamber and present the proof. If they acted fast enough, they could dismantle the spire before the final phase killed the Queen. But Selvar was dangerous. If he suspected Aaron had evidence, he might move even faster, or try to frame the human guard as the traitor. Aaron glanced toward the Queen's chambers. He had sworn to protect her. And now, protecting her didn't just mean standing with a spear in the hallway, it meant facing the most powerful enemy in the palace. He straightened, his decision clear. Tomorrow, there would be no more hiding. One way or another, the truth about the Forbidden Wing would come out. The early morning light filtered softly through the tall windows of the Zalari council chamber. The grand room was filled with the Empire's most powerful nobles, all dressed in their elaborate robes and jewels. Their eyes were sharp, their expressions serious. But many also showed doubt and suspicion, especially when they looked at the lone human standing before them. Lieutenant Aaron Hale kept his posture firm. He was used to being the outsider, the foreign soldier among Zalari elites. But today, he was not just a guard, he was the bearer of truth and the hope to save Queen Ilyara. At the front of the room, Lord Selvar sat on a raised platform, his thin smile barely hiding his displeasure. Beside him stood several other council members who whispered among themselves, casting wary glances at Aaron. The chamber was silent, waiting for Aaron to speak. Taking a deep breath, Aaron began. "Honored members of the council, I come before you with evidence that threatens the life of our queen and the future of the Zalari Empire." A murmur rippled through the crowd. He pulled out the small data recorder from his armor and held it up for all to see. "This device contains proof of a secret weapon hidden inside the sealed wing of the palace. It is designed to harm the queen, targeting her unique genetic signature. I found it there during my guard duty." Aaron pressed a button, and the room filled with flickering images and strange symbols. The data showed the pulsing spire, the activation orders, and the targeting parameters clearly linked to Queen Ilyara. Some nobles gasped. Others exchanged nervous glances. Lord Selvar's expression darkened. He rose slowly and spoke with a calm but threatening tone. "This is an outrageous accusation from a human soldier. Do you expect us to believe that I, loyal servant of the Empire, would conspire to kill our own queen?" Aaron held Selvar's gaze without fear. "The evidence does not lie. I was caught inside the sealed wing. You ordered the activation of that weapon. You threatened me to keep silent." Selvar's eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand politics, human. The Queen's alliance with humanity threatens our traditions and power. Some of us must act to protect the Empire from dangerous changes." A loud voice interrupted from the back of the chamber. It was Lady Thessa, a respected noblewoman known for her fairness. "If these accusations are true, then the Queen's life is at risk. We must investigate immediately." Several other council members nodded in agreement. The room buzzed with tension. "Lord," Selvar sneered, "this is treason. You would side with a human over your own people?" Aaron stepped forward. "I am a soldier sworn to protect the Queen, no matter her species. If the Empire is to survive, we must stand united, human and Zalari alike." The chamber erupted into debate. Voices raised, arguments made for and against. Some nobles feared change and distrusted humans. Others saw the danger Selvar posed and the need to act quickly. In the midst of the chaos, a group of loyal Zalari guards, commanded by one of the Queen's trusted generals, entered the chamber. They arrested Lord Selvar and several of his known allies on charges of conspiracy and attempted assassination. Selvar struggled but was forced to submit. Before being taken away, he glared at Aaron. "You have made powerful enemies, human. This is far from over." Aaron watched silently as Selvar was led out. With the conspirators removed, the council focused on dismantling the weapon in the sealed wing. Under the supervision of Zalari engineers and Aaron's guidance, the pulsing spire was carefully deactivated and sealed away forever. Queen Ilyara's condition began to improve rapidly after the weapon was neutralized. The court rejoiced at the news, and many whispered about the human guard's bravery and loyalty. Aaron was summoned to the Queen's chambers, where she stood looking as regal as ever, her silver skin glowing softly in the afternoon light. "You have saved my life," she said, her voice steady but warm. "Not as a human guard, but as a true protector of the Empire." Aaron bowed. "It was my duty, Your Majesty." She smiled. "The Empire owes you a debt it cannot repay. Together we will build a future where no one fears change." Aaron felt a quiet pride. He had come as an outsider, but now he was a symbol of hope, proof that humanity's courage and loyalty could stand beside even the greatest alien powers. As he left the palace, the sun setting behind the crystal towers, he knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where humans and Zalari might walk as equals. The palace was alive with quiet energy, but not the tense kind that had filled its halls days ago. Instead, there was hope, subtle but real. The people of the Zalari Empire felt it. Word had spread, the queen was recovering, and the conspiracy against her had been uncovered. Lieutenant Aaron Hale stood at the edge of the throne hall, watching as preparations began for a special ceremony. This was no ordinary event. It was a celebration of survival, trust, and a new beginning. Queen Ilyara entered the hall, her steps slow but steady. Her silver skin gleamed softly, and her eyes shone with the strength of a ruler who had faced death and emerged victorious. The court fell silent in respect. Aaron stepped forward as she approached, standing tall in his uniform. She stopped before him and studied his face with an expression that mixed gratitude and something deeper, a connection that went beyond words or titles. "You risked your life for me," she said quietly, "for the Empire, for what we believe in." "It was my duty," Aaron replied simply. She smiled, a rare and warm light in her eyes. "But it was more than duty. You showed loyalty when many would have turned away. You stood for justice when others hid in fear." Aaron nodded. "I believe in the future we can build. Human and Zalari, together." Ilyara reached out and placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Then you shall have a place not just as my guard, but as my partner in this journey." The ceremony began. The council gathered, nobles from every corner of the empire, and representatives from allied planets. Aaron watched as the queen spoke to them, her words steady and full of hope. She spoke of unity, of new alliances, and of the strength that comes from trust and cooperation. She named Aaron not just a guard, but an ambassador between humans and Zalari, a symbol of the future she wanted to create. The crowd applauded, some uncertain at first, but soon the clapping grew louder. The message was clear. The empire was changing, and with change came strength. In the days that followed, Aaron found his role growing beyond anything he had expected. He trained alongside Zalari officers, learning their ways and sharing human tactics. He spoke at forums, advocating for peace and cooperation. Yet, despite the progress, he knew challenges remained. There were those who still feared humans, who remembered Selvar's betrayal and worried about what change might bring. But Aaron believed in something stronger than fear: the power of example. One afternoon, Aaron stood in the palace gardens, watching as children, Zalari and human, played together under the twin moons. The laughter was a music unlike any he had heard before in this alien world. Queen Ilyara joined him quietly, her presence steady and comforting. "They are the future," she said, "born of many worlds but one empire." Aaron smiled. "And they will know a world better than ours, where trust is not a gift, but a way of life." She looked at him with a seriousness that touched his heart. "You have given me more than your strength, Aaron. You have given me hope." He met her gaze. "Then we will build that hope, together." Months passed, and the Zalari Empire began to shift. New policies encouraged cooperation with human settlements. Joint military exercises showed trust on both sides. The palace halls echoed less with suspicion and more with shared purpose. Aaron became a legend among both species, a human who not only protected a queen, but helped unite two worlds. But he never forgot the night in the sealed wing, the hidden danger, and the price the queen nearly paid. because in every victory there was a lesson. Vigilance was never over, and trust was earned through actions, not words. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Aaron stood on the balcony overlooking the city of crystalline towers. Beside him stood Queen Ilyara, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "We have come far," she said, "but there is still more to do." Aaron nodded. "Whatever comes next, we face it as one." She smiled, a promise in her eyes. Together, and in that moment, beneath alien stars, two unlikely allies found a future brighter than either. Had dreamed, an empire reborn through courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between human and Zalari.